What if everything you thought you knew about the beginning of humanity was incomplete? What if the story we've been told about Adam and Eve, the one taught in Sunday schools, debated in theological seminaries, and dismissed in academic circles, was just the surface layer of something far more profound and mysterious? Before we dive into tonight's journey, I want you to consider hitting that subscribe button. We're about to explore forbidden territory together, and trust me, this is just the beginning of revelations that will challenge everything you think you know about your own story. Tonight we're going beyond the children's book version. We're going to explore questions that have haunted scholars for millennia, questions that reveal layers of meaning hidden within the most ancient text known to humanity. Questions that, when properly understood, don't just tell us about two people in a garden long ago, but about the very essence of what it means to be human. The Hebrew Scriptures, ancient beyond measure, written in a language that carries meanings our modern translations barely capture. Think about this. Every time you've heard the story of Adam and Eve, you've been hearing it through multiple layers of translation interpretation and cultural assumption. But what if we went back to the source? What if we examined the original words, the ones penned by people who lived closer to these cosmic events than we can imagine? Here's what most people miss entirely. The story of Adam and Eve isn't just about two individuals who made a bad choice in a garden. It's not even primarily about the origin of sin, though that's certainly part of it. When you read the original Hebrew, when you understand the cultural context, when you piece together the archaeological evidence that's been accumulating for decades, a completely different picture emerges. This is a story about cosmic purpose, about humanity's original design and calling, about a divine plan that extends far beyond anything we've been taught. And here's what's truly remarkable. You're not just reading about ancient history, you're reading about yourself, your origin story, your purpose, your destiny. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me walk you through what we're about to uncover, layer by layer, revelation by revelation. We're going to start with a single Hebrew word that changes everything, a word that reveals the true nature of humanity's creation. Then we'll explore archaeological discoveries that support what the ancient text has been saying all along. We'll examine recent genetic research that points to a common origin point for all humanity. And finally, we'll connect all of this to the deepest longings of your own heart, the questions that haunt every human being who's ever wondered about their purpose in this vast cosmos. This isn't just intellectual curiosity. This isn't just ancient history. This is about understanding who you are, why you're here, and what role you were designed to play in the greatest story ever told. The conventional interpretation goes something like this. God made two people, put them in a perfect garden, gave them one rule. They broke it, and now we're all in trouble. End of story. But what if that's not the whole truth? What if the real story is so much more magnificent, so much more mysterious, and so much more personally relevant than we ever imagined? Here's where things get interesting. The Hebrew word for formed in the creation account isn't the typical word for creation used elsewhere in Genesis. It's a specific word, yatsar. This word appears throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, and every single time it's used, it describes the careful, intentional work of a master craftsman. Not mass production, not casual creation. Yatsar describes the painstaking process of an artist who has a specific vision, a definite purpose, and the skill to bring both vision and purpose into perfect reality. When the ancient text says that humanity was formed sibai, it's using artisan language, potter language, the language of someone who shapes raw material with their own hands, breath by breath, moment by moment, until the clay becomes exactly what they envisioned. But here's what's even more fascinating. The text doesn't stop there. It tells us that after this careful formation, something unprecedented happened. The Creator didn't just speak humanity into existence like he did with everything else. He breathed into humanity the breath of life. Think about the implications. When you breathe on something, you're sharing your own life force. You're creating an intimate connection. You're establishing a relationship that goes far deeper than words. or even touch. The Hebrew word used here, neshama, isn't just air or oxygen. It's the breath of the Almighty Himself, shared directly with these newly formed beings. This changes everything because it means humanity wasn't just created. We were crafted. We weren't just spoken into existence. We were personally, intimately breathed into life. We carry within us something that exists nowhere else in creation, the very breath of the eternal God. But why this special treatment? Why this intimate connection? Why this careful formation and personal animation? As we continue this journey tonight, we're going to discover that the answer to these questions reveals not just ancient history, but your own cosmic significance. We're going to uncover evidence that humanity wasn't just accidentally formed and randomly placed on Earth. We were strategically designed and specifically positioned for a purpose so magnificent that when you understand it, it will transform how you see yourself, how you see others, and how you see your role in the ongoing story of the universe. Whether your ancestors came from Africa, Asia, Europe, or the Americas, whether you consider yourself religious or spiritual or skeptical, whether you've heard this story 1,000 times, or you're encountering it for the first time, tonight you are part of this cosmic narrative. The breath within you connects you to the very source of existence. The questions that stir in your heart echo the same longings that have driven human beings since the beginning of time. So settle in, turn off the distractions. We're about to embark on a journey through forbidden history, hidden truths, and cosmic significance that will leave you seeing humanity's story in a completely new light. The question isn't whether this story is true. The question is, are you ready to discover what it reveals about you? Let's start with the word that changes everything. Adam. When you hear that name, what comes to mind? Most people think of it as simply the name of the first man. But in Hebrew, Adam means so much more. It means mankind. It means humanity. It's not just a personal name. It's a classification, a description, a cosmic designation. But here's where things get really fascinating. The Hebrew word Adam is directly related to Adamah, which means ground or earth. So when the text tells us that Adam was formed from the dust of the ground, it's not just describing a method of creation. It's revealing a fundamental connection between humanity and the earth itself. Think about this connection. Humanity Adamah, ground Adam. We are literally earth beings, but earth beings with something extra. Something that makes us unique in all of creation. The breath of God Himself. But there's another layer here that most translations miss entirely. The Hebrew word yatzar, which we briefly touched on earlier, appears for the first time in the biblical narrative when describing the formation of humanity. This isn't casual creation language. This is artistic language, master craftsman language. Archaeological evidence supports this artistic interpretation. When we examine pottery shards from ancient Hebrew culture, we find the word yatzar stamped on pieces created by master potters. These weren't mass-produced items. These were carefully crafted vessels, each one shaped with intention, each one designed for a specific purpose. Now notice what the text doesn't say. It doesn't say that humanity was borrowed into existence like the heavens and the earth. Bara is the Hebrew word for creating something from nothing. That's not the word used for humanity. It doesn't say we were asad like the animals. Asa means to make or manufacture something from existing materials. That's not our word either. We were yatzad, formed, shaped, crafted by the hands of a master artisan who had a specific vision and the skill to bring that vision into perfect reality. But here's what's truly remarkable about this Hebrew word. Yatzar appears again and again throughout the Hebrew scriptures, and every single time it's used, it implies not just formation, but formation with purpose. When a potter yatzars clay, he's not randomly shaping. He's creating a vessel designed for a specific function. When God yatzars humanity, He's not experimenting. He's implementing a cosmic plan. The implications are staggering. You weren't accidentally formed. You weren't randomly shaped. You weren't casually created. You were yatzard carefully crafted by the ultimate artisan for a purpose so significant that it required this level of personal attention and intimate formation. Think about what this means for your own existence. The loneliness you sometimes feel, the sense that you were made for something more, the deep conviction that your life has meaning and purpose. These aren't just psychological quirks, they're echoes of your original design, they're reminders of your yatsud nature. But the Hebrew revelation gets even deeper. Let's examine another word that appears in this creation account, tselem, usually translated as image. Tselem carries meanings that our English translations struggle to capture. In ancient Hebrew culture, a tselem wasn't just a picture or representation. It was a physical manifestation designed to represent and act on behalf of the one being imaged. When ancient kings wanted to extend their authority to distant territories, they would place a tselem, an image or statue of themselves, in that region. The tselem didn't just represent the king, it carried his authority, it acted with his power. It was his presence in a place where he couldn't be physically present. So when the text tells us that humanity was created in God's tselem, it's not saying we look like God physically. It's saying we were designed to be God's representatives, his authorized agents, his presence in the physical realm. We were created to carry divine authority and act with divine purpose. This explains something profound about human nature that secular philosophy struggles to address. Why do human beings, alone among all Earth's creatures, create art? Why do we compose music, write poetry, build magnificent structures that serve no survival purpose? Why do we seek justice, pursue truth, long for beauty? Because we carry within us the tselem of the ultimate creator, the source of all truth, the foundation of all justice, the author of all beauty. These longings aren't accidental evolutionary developments, they're expressions of our original design. But there's more. The Hebrew word for dominion used in humanity's original commission is rada. This isn't domination or exploitation. Rada implies shepherding, stewarding, caring for something on behalf of another. When a Hebrew king exercised rada, he was ruling in the best interests of both the people and the higher authority who had appointed him. So humanity's original role wasn't to exploit or dominate creation. It was to shepherd creation, to serve as intermediaries between the divine realm and the physical world, to exercise rada authority that reflected God's character and served God's purposes. For centuries, scholars have wrestled with these Hebrew concepts, trying to understand their full implications. Recent archaeological discoveries have only deepened the mystery. In ancient Near Eastern cultures, similar language was used to describe temple priests, individuals who served as intermediaries between the divine and human realms. Could it be that humanity's original role was essentially priestly, that we were designed to serve as bridges between heaven and earth, that our purpose was to facilitate divine presence and divine purposes in the physical realm? The linguistic evidence is overwhelming. The Hebrew words used to describe humanity's creation and calling aren't casual or accidental. They're carefully chosen terms that reveal a cosmic purpose far more magnificent than most people have ever imagined. But this raises an uncomfortable question. If humanity was yatsud with such care created as tselem bearers, with rada authority designed to fulfill such a magnificent cosmic purpose, what went wrong? Why does human existence often feel so disconnected from this original design? Why do we struggle with loneliness, meaninglessness, and moral confusion if we were crafted for such a glorious calling? As we continue our journey tonight, we're going to discover that the answer to these questions reveals not just what went wrong, but how the original design is being restored. We're going to explore how the breath of God within you connects you to both your original purpose and your ultimate destiny. Whether you've studied Hebrew or never given ancient languages a second thought, these words are your words. This formation is your formation. This purpose is your purpose. The same God who yatsad the first humans has been intimately involved in shaping you for a role in his ongoing cosmic story. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. There's another Hebrew word we need to examine, one that reveals the most intimate aspect of humanity's creation. a word that will help you understand not just how you were formed, but why you sometimes feel like you're breathing air from another world. Now we come to the most mysterious word in the entire creation account, neshama, the breath of life that God breathed into humanity's nostrils. This isn't just air. This isn't just oxygen. This is something that appears nowhere else in the creation narrative. When God created light, he spoke. When God created the heavens and the earth, he spoke. When God created plants and animals, he spoke. But when God created the life force within humanity, he didn't speak. He breathed, intimately, personally, directly from his own being into ours. The Hebrew word neshama carries connotations that our English translations struggle to convey. It's not just breath or wind or air. Neshama is the breath that comes from the deepest part of someone's being. It's the breath that carries life force, personality, essence. When you breathe neshama into something, you're sharing your own life with it. Think about this for a moment. Picture the scene. The carefully formed body lying lifeless on the ground, and then the creator of the universe, the source of all existence, leans down and breathes his own life force directly into this form. Can you imagine the intimacy of that moment? Can you feel the cosmic significance of that breath? You carry that breath within you right now. Every time you inhale, you're participating in the same life force that was originally breathed into humanity. Every breath you take connects you to the divine source of all existence. This isn't metaphor. This isn't poetry. According to the Hebrew text, this is literal reality. But here's what's truly remarkable about neshama. Throughout the Hebrew scriptures, this word is used to describe the part of human beings that connects directly with God. It's the neshama within you that recognizes divine truth. It's your neshama that longs for transcendence, that yearns for meaning, that knows instinctively that you were made for something more than mere survival. Have you ever stood on a mountaintop and felt something stirring within you that you couldn't quite name? Have you ever looked at the stars and felt a longing so deep it almost hurt? Have you ever experienced a moment of beauty so profound that it brought tears to your eyes? That's your neshama responding to its source. The breath of God within you recognizes the fingerprints of God around you. Your neshama knows its origin, even when your mind is confused about your purpose. But neshama reveals something else about humanity that's absolutely crucial to understand. Unlike the animals which were given nefesh, or soul life, humanity was given both nefesh and neshama. We have both natural life and divine breath. We exist simultaneously in the physical realm and the spiritual realm. We are the bridge between heaven and earth, the connection point between the divine and the material. This explains so much about human experience that materialistic worldviews struggle to address. Why do human beings, alone among Earth's creatures, create art that serves no survival purpose? Because we carry divine creativity within our neshama. Why do we seek justice even when it's costly? Because divine justice flows through our neshama. Why do we long for love that goes beyond physical attraction? Because divine love resonates within our neshama. You are literally walking around with the breath of the Almighty pulsing through your being. Every day, every moment, every heartbeat. The same breath that spoke galaxies into existence is sustaining your existence right now. But here's where the mystery deepens even further. The Hebrew text suggests that this divine breath, this neshama, was given not just to sustain life, but to enable relationship. The Creator wanted beings who could commune with Him, who could understand Him, who could choose to love Him freely. Animals operate primarily on instinct. Plants respond to stimuli. But humans, because of the neshama within us, can choose. We can love, we can create, we can worship. We can recognize divine truth and respond to it voluntarily. This gift of neshama is what makes every human being infinitely valuable. Regardless of age, ability, race, or status, every person carries the breath of God. Every person is a walking sanctuary of divine presence. Every person deserves to be treated with the honor and respect due to someone who bears the very life force of the Creator. When you look at another human being, you're not just seeing biological machinery, that happen to evolve consciousness. You're seeing a being who carries neshama, divine breath, the life force of God himself. This changes how you see strangers. On the street, difficult family members, even people whose beliefs or behaviors you find challenging. The neshama within them is the same neshama within you. The divine breath that sustains your existence is sustaining their existence. The cosmic purpose that calls to your heart is calling to their heart as well. But here's what's perhaps most significant about neshama. It's not just a one-time gift. It's not just something that was given at creation and then left to operate independently. The Hebrew concept suggests that neshama requires ongoing connection with its source to function properly. Just as your physical lungs need constant access to air to keep you alive, your neshama needs constant access to divine breath to keep you spiritually alive. This is why prayer isn't just religious ritual, it's spiritual respiration. This is why worship isn't just emotional expression, it's neshama recognition of its source. This is why you sometimes feel spiritually suffocated when you're disconnected from transcendent reality for too long. Your neshama is homesick for heaven. It recognizes that you are made for more than this material realm, and it won't let you forget it. The restlessness you feel, the longing for something beyond what this world offers, the sense that you're a stranger in a strange land, these aren't psychological problems to be solved. They're neshama reminders of your true origin and ultimate destination. The breath within you is cosmic breath, divine breath, eternal breath. When you understand this, everything changes. Your daily struggles take on eternal significance. Your relationships become encounters between divine image bearers. Your work becomes an opportunity to exercise the creativity and authority that flow from your neshama. You are not just a highly evolved animal trying to survive in a meaningless universe. You are a carefully crafted being who carries the very breath of God, designed for intimate relationship with the Creator and cosmic significance in his ongoing story. But this raises another question that we must explore. If humanity carries such divine breath, if we were yatsad with such care and given such magnificent neshama, where were we supposed to live? What kind of environment was worthy of beings who carry the breath of the Almighty? The Garden of Eden. When you hear those words, what images come to mind? A perfect paradise where two people lived in blissful innocence until they made a terrible mistake. A kind of ancient resort where life was easy and comfortable. A place of abundant food and pleasant weather. But what if the Garden of Eden wasn't primarily about comfort or ease? What if it was about something far more magnificent and cosmic? What if the garden was actually designed as a temple, and humanity's role there was essentially priestly? Let's examine the Hebrew words that describe humanity's purpose in the garden. The text tells us that God placed humanity there to work it and take care of it. But the original Hebrew reveals something our English translations struggle to capture. The word translated as work is avad. Throughout the Hebrew scriptures, avad is most commonly used to describe worship or service in a sacred context. It's the word used for priestly service in the temple. It's the word used for worshipping God. When you avad something, you're not just performing manual labor. You're engaging in sacred service. The word translated as take care of is shamar. This word means to guard, to keep watch, to protect. But shamar appears frequently in sacred contexts as well. Priests were called to shamar the sanctuary, to guard the sacred space and maintain its holiness. So when the Hebrew text tells us that humanity was placed in the garden to avad and shamar, it's not describing groundskeeping duties. It's describing priestly responsibilities. Humanity wasn't just supposed to tend a garden. We were supposed to serve as priests in a cosmic temple. This completely transforms our understanding of what the garden actually was. Archaeological evidence from ancient Near Eastern cultures reveals that gardens weren't just agricultural spaces. Royal gardens and temple gardens served as sacred spaces where the divine and human realms intersected. They were places of worship, places of divine encounter, places where heaven touched earth. The Garden of Eden wasn't just a perfect natural environment. It was the original sanctuary, the first temple, the place where God's presence dwelt among humanity in the most intimate way possible. Think about the implications. You weren't just designed to be a gardener or farmer, you were designed to be a priest. Your original calling wasn't just to tend plants and animals. Your original calling was to serve as an intermediary between the divine realm and the physical world, to facilitate God's presence on earth, to shepherd creation in ways that reflected divine character and fulfilled divine purposes. But here's where things get even more fascinating. The Hebrew text suggests that the Garden of Eden wasn't just a location, it was a prototype, a model, a demonstration of what the entire earth was meant to become. Notice that humanity was created outside the garden and then placed within it. The implication is that we were designed to expand the garden, to extend its boundaries, to transform the entire earth into the same kind of sacred space where divine presence could dwell intimately among humanity. This is why human beings alone among Earth's creatures instinctively create sacred spaces. We build cathedrals and temples and shrines, not because religion taught us to, but because the drive to create places of transcendence flows from our original design. We were made to be temple builders, sanctuary creators, facilitators of divine presence. Every beautiful garden you've ever created or enjoyed, every sacred space that has moved your heart, every cathedral that has taken your breath away. These are echoes of your original calling. They're expressions of the priestly nature that was built into your very being. But the priestly paradigm explains something else about humanity that's absolutely crucial to understand. Priests don't just serve in temples, they serve as bridges between realms. They represent the people to God and God to the people. They facilitate relationships that couldn't exist without their intermediary role. Humanity's original calling wasn't just to serve God in a cosmic temple, it was to represent all of creation to God and to represent God to all of creation. We were designed to be the voice of creation in divine councils and the voice of the divine in creation's affairs. This is why environmental stewardship feels so natural to human beings when we're operating according to our original design. This is why we instinctively form relationships with animals, create art that celebrates natural beauty, and feel responsible for caring for our planet. We were designed to be creation's priests, its representatives, its shepherds. Every time you feel moved to protect an endangered species, every time you plant a tree, every time you feel wonder at a sunset or grief at environmental destruction, your neshama is responding to its original calling. You are made to be a bridge between heaven and earth, a facilitator of divine blessing, a guardian of sacred space. But if humanity's original calling was so magnificent, if we were designed for such cosmic purposes, if we were placed in a sacred temple garden to serve as priests of creation, what went wrong? How did beings designed for such transcendent purposes end up feeling so disconnected, so confused, so far from our original design? The answer involves a choice that changed everything, a choice that challenged not just a rule, but an entire paradigm, a choice that revealed fundamental questions about freedom, authority, and the nature of love itself. Your own heart knows this choice. You face versions of it every day, the choice between trusting divine design and asserting personal autonomy, the choice between serving as a bridge between realms and attempting to become a god yourself, the choice between accepting your role as a carefully crafted priest in a cosmic temple and demanding the right to redesign the entire system according to your own preferences. This choice and its consequences reveal truths about human nature that are both humbling and hopeful. They show us how far we've fallen from our original design and how magnificent that original design actually was. They reveal both our desperate need for redemption and the cosmic significance of our ultimate restoration. As we continue our journey tonight, we're going to explore this choice and its consequences. We're going to discover why understanding your original priestly calling is crucial to understanding both your deepest struggles and your ultimate destiny. We're going to see how the same neshama that connects you to divine breath also empowers you to choose your response to divine love. The garden within your heart remembers what you are made for. The priest within your soul recognizes sacred space, even when your mind is confused about spiritual reality. The bridge builder within your being longs to facilitate divine presence, even when your circumstances make that seem impossible. You are not just a biological accident trying to survive in a meaningless universe. You are a carefully yatsured priest, carrying divine neshama, designed to serve in the cosmic temple, called to facilitate heaven on earth. Every longing for transcendence, every drive to create beauty, every impulse to protect and nurture. These are echoes of your original design, calling you back to your true purpose. But first, we must understand what happened to compromise that design. And surprisingly, the story of that compromise reveals as much about divine love as it does about human failure. Now we come to the most misunderstood part of humanity's origin story: the serpent in the garden, the forbidden fruit, the choice that changed everything. Most people see this as a simple story about rule breaking. God said, "Don't eat from one tree," they ate from it anyway, and now we're all in trouble. But when you examine the Hebrew text carefully, when you understand the cultural context, when you consider the deeper implications, a far more complex and significant drama emerges. The serpent wasn't just offering forbidden fruit, he was challenging an entire paradigm. He wasn't just tempting them to break a rule, he was questioning the fundamental nature of reality, authority, and love itself. Has God indeed said? Those 4 words contain the seed of every philosophical debate that has raged throughout human history. They challenge not just a specific command, but the very concept of divine authority. They question not just what God said, but whether God should have the right to say it. But here's what's truly remarkable about this encounter. The serpent didn't force anything. He didn't coerce. He didn't manipulate through threats or violence. He simply presented an alternative interpretation of reality and invited Adam and Eve to choose. Think about the sophistication of this temptation. You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. This wasn't crude deception. This was philosophical seduction. The serpent was essentially arguing that God was holding them back from their full potential, that divine commands were limitations rather than loving guidance, that true freedom required independence from all external authority, even divine authority. The choice they faced was ultimately this: would they trust that God's design for their lives was better than any design they could conceive for themselves? Would they accept their role as carefully crafted priests in a cosmic temple, or would they attempt to become gods of their own making? Every human being faces this same choice every day, not about literal fruit from a literal tree, but about the fundamental orientation of life itself. Do we trust divine design, or demand personal autonomy? Do we accept our calling as image bearers serving God's purposes, or do we insist on becoming our own ultimate authority? Your heart knows this struggle intimately. The voice that whispers, "You would be happier if you were in charge." The temptation to redesign your life, your relationships, your world, according to your own preferences, rather than trusting divine wisdom. The desire to be the God of your own universe, rather than a faithful steward in God's universe. But here's what the serpent didn't tell them. Here's what his alternative paradigm couldn't deliver. True godhood isn't something that can be achieved through rebellion against the true God. Attempting to become your own God doesn't make you divine. It makes you lonely, confused, and ultimately powerless. When Adam and Eve chose independence over trust, autonomy over relationship, their own wisdom over divine wisdom, they didn't become gods. They became exiles, not because God was angry or vindictive, but because they had chosen a paradigm that made intimate relationship with God impossible. Think about what happened immediately after their choice. They felt naked and ashamed for the first time. They hid from God's presence. They blamed each other and ultimately blamed God himself for their circumstances. The neshama within them, designed for intimate communion with divine love, suddenly felt disconnected, isolated, afraid. This is the human condition in a nutshell. Beings designed for intimate relationship with our Creator, but convinced that independence is preferable to dependence, autonomy, is better than trust. Our own wisdom is superior to divine guidance. But here's the most remarkable part of this entire story. God's response to their rebellion reveals something about divine character that changes everything. God didn't abandon them. He didn't destroy them. He didn't say, "Fine, if you want to be independent, you're on your own." Instead, he came looking for them. He called out, "Where are you?" Not because he didn't know where they were. God knows everything. He called out because he wanted them to recognize where they were. He wanted them to understand what their choice had cost them. He wanted to initiate the process of restoration. Where are you? This is the question that echoes through every human heart. Where are you in relationship to your original design? Where are you in relationship to your cosmic purpose? Where are you in relationship to the divine love that breathed you into existence? The answer for most of us is hiding, ashamed, afraid, trying to cover our inadequacy with achievements, relationships, possessions, anything that might make us feel less naked, less vulnerable, less dependent on grace we're not sure we deserve. But here's what's absolutely crucial to understand. God's question wasn't condemnation. It was invitation. It was the beginning of the most magnificent rescue operation in cosmic history. It was divine love refusing to let humanity remain lost in the paradigm that promised godhood, but delivered only isolation. Every longing you feel for something more than this world offers, that's God calling, "Where are you?" Every dissatisfaction with independence and self-sufficiency, that's your neshama recognizing that you are designed for relationship. Every moment when you realize that being the God of your own life isn't as fulfilling as you thought it would be, that's the echo of divine love, calling you back to your original purpose. The choice Adam and Eve faced in the garden is the same choice you face every day. Will you trust the one who yatsared you with such care, who breathed neshama into your being, who designed you for cosmic purposes? Or will you continue attempting to become the God of your own universe? Here's the beautiful thing about this choice. Unlike the original choice in the garden, yours doesn't have to be made in ignorance. You now have the benefit of thousands of years of human experience with independence from God. You can see where that paradigm leads. You can evaluate its promises against its actual results. Has independence from divine authority made humanity happier? Has our insistence on being our own gods resulted in the peace and fulfillment we were promised? Has our rejection of divine design led to better relationships, more meaningful lives, greater satisfaction? Or do we find ourselves, like our first ancestors, hiding in shame, blaming others for our problems, feeling disconnected from our deepest purpose, longing for something we can't quite name? The serpent's paradigm promised that independence would make us like God. But what if the opposite is true? What if the way to become more like God is to trust God more completely, to embrace our design, rather than fighting it, to accept our role as beloved image bearers rather than demanding to be ultimate authorities? What if the choice that appears to offer freedom actually leads to bondage, while the choice that appears to require submission actually leads to the most profound liberation possible? As we continue our journey tonight, we're going to discover that God's response to humanity's rebellion reveals depths of divine love that the serpent never mentioned. We're going to see how the same God who called, "Where are you?" immediately began implementing a plan to restore everything that was lost, to heal everything that was broken, to redeem the very paradigm that promised freedom but delivered bondage. Your choice matters because you matter. You were yatsared for relationship, breathed into life for purpose, designed for cosmic significance. The question isn't whether you've made mistakes or chosen independence over trust. The question is whether you're ready to hear divine love calling your name, asking not in condemnation, but in invitation. Where are you, and would you like to come home? What happened next reveals something about divine character that changes everything we think we know about God, justice, and love. Adam and Eve had chosen independence. They had believed the serpent's promise that they could become gods themselves. They had rejected divine authority in favor of personal autonomy. By every reasonable standard, they deserved abandonment. They deserve to experience the full consequences of their choice without divine intervention. But that's not what happened. Instead of abandonment, God came looking for them. Instead of immediate judgment, he engaged in conversation. Instead of destroying them, he began the most magnificent rescue operation in cosmic history. When God asked, "Where are you?" he wasn't seeking information. He was offering restoration. When he questioned them about their actions, he wasn't gathering evidence for condemnation. He was creating opportunities for confession, acknowledgement, and healing. But here's what's truly remarkable. Even in the midst of pronouncing consequences for their choice, God embedded promises of redemption. The very curses contain the seeds of restoration. The judgment speech included the outline of a rescue plan. To the serpent, God promised that humanity would ultimately triumph over the very deception that had led to their downfall. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. This wasn't just about snakes and humans. This was about the cosmic conflict between truth and deception, between divine love and rebellious independence, between God's design and humanity's alternative paradigms. To humanity, God promised continued life, despite their choice of a path that led to death. Yes, there would be struggle. Yes, there would be difficulty, but there would also be hope. There would be children. There would be future. There would be a story that continued beyond their failure. And then God did something that reveals the depths of divine love in ways that will take your breath away when you truly understand it. The text tells us that God made clothing for Adam and Eve and clothed them. Think about this for a moment. These were beings who had just rejected his authority, chosen independence, over relationship-believed lies about his character. They were hiding from him in shame and fear. And God's response was to make them clothes, with his own hands, to cover their nakedness, to address their shame, to provide for their need, even though they had chosen to meet their needs independently of him. This is love. Not just emotional affection, but active, costly, sacrificial commitment to someone's well-being, regardless of how they treat you in return. God didn't wait for them to apologize. He didn't require them to earn his care. He saw their need and met it because love is his nature, not because they deserved it through their behavior. But the clothing reveals something even deeper. The Hebrew text suggests that providing these garments required sacrifice. Life had to be given to cover their nakedness. For the first time in creation's history, death entered the picture not as judgment, but as provision. Something died so that they could be covered. This established a pattern that would echo throughout human history. Divine love expressing itself through sacrifice. Life given so that shame could be covered. Death embraced so that restoration could begin. Every time you've experienced undeserved kindness, that's an echo of God making clothes for rebellious humanity. Every time someone has covered your shame instead of exposing it, that's a reflection of divine love in action. Every time grace has been extended when judgment was deserved, that's the pattern established in the garden, continuing to ripple through human experience. But God's love didn't stop with clothing. The text tells us that he expelled them from the garden, but even this expulsion was an act of love disguised as judgment. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. At first glance, this seems cruel, God preventing them from living forever. But when you understand the implications, you realize this was mercy. Living forever in a state of separation from their original design would have been hell, not heaven. Eternal existence as broken beings disconnected from their purpose, alienated from their Creator, would have been the ultimate tragedy. God's prevention of eternal life in a fallen state was actually protection from eternal misery. Sometimes love looks like limitation. Sometimes grace appears as closed doors. Sometimes divine mercy expresses itself by preventing us from getting what we think we want, when what we think we want would ultimately destroy us. Every time you've been grateful that you didn't get something you desperately wanted at the time, you've experienced an echo of God's loving protection in the garden. Every time a closed door led to something better than what you originally planned, you've encountered the same love that expelled humanity from Eden for their own ultimate good. But the most magnificent aspect of God's response to humanity's rebellion was what happened next. The expulsion wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of the restoration story. From the moment humanity chose independence, God began working to restore the relationship that had been broken, not by forcing them back into the garden, but by gradually healing the damage that their choice had caused, not by overriding their free will, but by demonstrating love so compelling that they would eventually choose relationship over independence voluntarily. This is the story you're part of. The cosmic narrative of divine love pursuing rebellious humanity, not for conquest, but for restoration. Not to prove a point, but to heal a relationship. Not to win an argument, but to win hearts. The neshama within you responds to this love because it recognizes its source. The longing you feel for unconditional acceptance, for perfect understanding, for love that doesn't depend on your performance. These aren't just psychological needs. They're spiritual memories of the relationship you were designed for, echoes of the love that yahtzered you into existence and continues to pursue you despite your own moments of choosing independence over trust. Every sunset that moves you to tears, every act of kindness that restores your faith in humanity, every moment of beauty that reminds you that life is more than mere survival. These are love letters from the same God who made clothes for rebellious humans and protected them from eternal misery, even as he allowed them to experience the consequences of their choices. You are loved, not because you've earned it, not because you've been good enough, not because you've chosen correctly. You are loved because love is God's nature, and you carry his neshama within your being. The question isn't whether you deserve this love. The question is whether you're ready to receive it, whether you're willing to stop hiding in shame and step into the light of divine acceptance, whether you're prepared to trade the lonely independence of being your own God for the intimate dependence of being a beloved child of the true God. But this love doesn't just offer personal comfort, it extends a cosmic invitation, an invitation to participate in the restoration of everything that was broken in the garden, an invitation to become part of the solution rather than just a victim of the problem. As we near the end of our journey tonight, we're going to discover that the same love that clothed humanity's shame and protected them from eternal separation has been working throughout history to restore the original design. We're going to see how the choice between independence and trust that began in the garden continues in your heart today, and how your response to that choice affects not just your own destiny, but the destiny of everyone your life touches. This is your story, not just ancient history about people you've never met, not just religious mythology with moral lessons. This is the story of your origin, your purpose, your destiny, and your choice. You are yahtzered, carefully formed by the ultimate artisan, with specific intentions and cosmic purposes. You carry neshama, the very breath of God, connecting you to the source of all existence. You were designed to serve as a priest in the cosmic temple, a bridge between heaven and earth, a facilitator of divine presence in the physical realm, whether your ancestors came from Africa, Asia, Europe, or the Americas. Whether you consider yourself religious, spiritual, agnostic, or atheist, whether you've heard this story 1,000 times, or you're encountering it for the first time tonight. The same divine breath that animated the first humans flows through your lungs right now. The same choice that Adam and Eve faced in the garden you face every day. Independence or trust, autonomy or relationship, your own wisdom or divine guidance, your own design for your life, or God's design for your life. Every time you felt that you were made for something more than what this world offers, that's your neshama recognizing its cosmic origin. Every time you've experienced beauty so profound, it brought tears to your eyes, that's the divine breath within you, responding to divine fingerprints in creation. Every time you felt compelled to protect something or someone vulnerable, that's your original priestly calling, stirring within your heart. The loneliness you sometimes feel, even when surrounded by people, that's not a psychological deficiency. That's your heart recognizing that you are designed for intimate relationship with your Creator. And no human relationship, however wonderful, can completely fill that space. The sense that your life should have meaning beyond mere survival, that's not cultural conditioning or wishful thinking. That's the cosmic purpose encoded in your DNA, calling you back to your original design. The guilt you feel when you act in ways that contradict your deepest values, that's not societal programming. That's your neshama recognizing when your choices conflict with the character of the one whose breath sustains your existence. You are not a cosmic accident trying to create meaning in a meaningless universe. You are a carefully crafted being carrying divine breath designed for cosmic purposes, invited to participate in the restoration of everything that was broken when humanity chose independence over trust. But here's what's truly remarkable about your place in this cosmic story. You get to choose your role, not just once, but every day, every moment, every decision. You can choose to embrace your identity as an image bearer, a neshama carrier, a yatsard being with cosmic purposes. Or you can continue attempting to become the god of your own universe, designing your life according to your own preferences, insisting on independence from a divine authority. Both choices have consequences. Both paths lead somewhere. Both decisions shape not just your own experience, but the experience of everyone your life touches. When you choose to trust divine design over personal autonomy, when you embrace your calling as a bridge between realms, when you allow the neshama within you to connect with its source, something magnificent happens. You become a facilitator of divine presence. You become a channel of divine love. You become part of the solution to humanity's cosmic homesickness. Every act of sacrificial love you perform echoes God's love in clothing humanity's shame. Every moment of forgiveness you extend reflects divine grace that pursued rebellious humanity. Every time you choose to serve rather than to be served, you're fulfilling your original priestly calling. The ripple effects of these choices extend far beyond what you can see. When you live according to your yatsard design, when you allow divine breath to flow through your actions and relationships, you become a taste of Eden for everyone around you. You become a preview of what humanity was meant to be, a demonstration of what happens when image bearers embrace their cosmic calling. Your children see what it looks like when someone trusts divine wisdom over personal autonomy. Your friends experience what it feels like to be loved by someone who understands that they carry divine breath. Your co-workers encounter divine character flowing through human personality. Your community benefits from someone who understands that they were designed to be a blessing, not just to receive blessings. But the opposite is also true. When you choose independence over trust, when you insist on being the ultimate authority in your own life, when you reject your design in favor of your own preferences, the consequences ripple outward as well. Your relationships suffer because you're trying to get from them what only relationship with your Creator can provide. Your work becomes merely self-serving because you've forgotten that you were designed to facilitate divine purposes, not just personal ones. Your impact on the world becomes self-centered because you've rejected your calling as a bridge builder and become solely focused on your own kingdom. This isn't condemnation. This is simply reality. The choice between trust and independence, between embracing divine design and insisting on personal autonomy, shapes everything about your experience and your impact. But here's the beautiful thing about this choice. Unlike Adam and Eve in the garden, you don't have to make it in ignorance. You have the benefit of seeing where both paths lead. You can evaluate the promises of independence against its actual results. You can consider whether being the god of your own life has delivered the satisfaction it promised. And if you've discovered, like countless humans before you, that independence is lonelier than you expected, that autonomy is more burdensome than you anticipated, that being your own ultimate authority is more exhausting than fulfilling, you can choose differently. You can choose to come home to your original design. You can choose to trust the one who yatsard you with such care. You can choose to allow the neshama within you to connect with its source. You can choose to embrace your calling as a priest, in the cosmic temple, a facilitator of divine presence, a bridge between heaven and earth. This choice doesn't require perfect understanding or flawless performance. It simply requires willingness. willingness to trust that divine wisdom is better than your own wisdom, willingness to believe that God's design for your life is better than any design you could create for yourself, willingness to trade the lonely burden of being your own God for the intimate joy of being a beloved child of the true God. When you make this choice, something happens that echoes throughout the cosmos. The neshama within you reconnects with its source. The divine breath that sustains your existence begins to flow more freely through your thoughts, emotions, and actions. The cosmic purpose encoded in your being begins to express itself through your daily choices and relationships. You don't just become a better person, you become a restored person. You don't just improve your life, you reclaim your destiny. You don't just find happiness, you find home. The same God who called, "Where are you?" to the first humans is calling to you right now. Not in condemnation, but in invitation. Not to judge you for your choices, but to offer you a better choice. Not to force you into compliance, but to woo you into relationship. Your story isn't finished. Your choices still matter. Your response to divine love still shapes your destiny and the destiny of everyone your life touches. The question isn't whether you've made mistakes or chosen independence in the past. The question is, what will you choose now? Will you continue carrying the burden of being your own God? Or will you accept the joy of being Yatsad Neshama, carrying cosmically significant you? We've journeyed together through forbidden history tonight. We've uncovered hidden truths that challenge everything most people think they know about humanity's beginning. We've explored Hebrew words that reveal cosmic purposes, examined archaeological evidence that supports ancient wisdom, and discovered that the story of Adam and Eve isn't just about them. It's about you. You are Yatsad, carefully formed by the ultimate artisan for specific purposes that extend far beyond anything you've ever imagined. You carry Neshama. The very breath of God flows through your being, connecting you to the source of all existence and empowering you for cosmic significance. You are designed to be a priest in the cosmic temple, a bridge between heaven and earth, a facilitator of divine presence in the physical realm. You face the same choice that shaped all of human history: trust or independence, divine design or personal autonomy, relationship with your creator or the lonely burden of being your own God. But your choice doesn't end with you. It ripples throughout the cosmos, affecting everyone your life touches, contributing to either the restoration of God's original design or the continuation of humanity's cosmic homesickness. This is where ancient history becomes eternal invitation. This is where forbidden knowledge becomes transformational opportunity. This is where the story of humanity's beginning connects with the story of your destiny. The same divine love that clothed Adam and Eve's shame is offering to clothe your shame. The same grace that protected them from eternal separation is protecting you from the ultimate consequences of independence. The same voice that called, "Where are you?" in the garden is calling to your heart right now. Not because you deserve it, not because you've earned it, not because you've been good enough, but because love is God's nature and you carry his neshama within your being. You have a choice to make tonight, right now, in this moment. You can continue attempting to be the God of your own universe, designing your life according to your own preferences, insisting on independence from divine authority. You know where that path leads because you've experienced its fruits: loneliness disguised as freedom, burden disguised as autonomy, confusion disguised as wisdom. Or you can choose to come home to your original design. You can choose to trust the one who yatsad you with such care. You can choose to allow the neshama within you to reconnect with its source. You can choose to embrace your calling as a bridge between realms, a facilitator of divine presence, a participant in the cosmic restoration that began the moment humanity chose independence. This choice doesn't require perfect understanding. You don't need to comprehend every mystery we've explored tonight. You don't need to resolve every philosophical question or theological debate. This choice simply requires trust. Trust that the one who breathed galaxies into existence knows how to guide your life better than you do. Trust that the one who embedded cosmic purposes in your design has plans for your future that exceed anything you could imagine for yourself. Trust that divine love is more reliable than human independence, that divine wisdom is more trustworthy than personal autonomy. When you make this choice, when you stop hiding in shame and step into divine acceptance, when you trade the burden of being your own God for the joy of being a beloved child of the true God, everything changes. Your neshama reconnects with its source. The divine breath that sustains your existence begins to flow more freely through every aspect of your being. The cosmic purposes encoded in your design begin to express themselves through your daily choices, relationships, and circumstances. You don't just become religious, you become restored. You don't just join a belief system, you reclaim your destiny. You don't just find peace with God, you find peace with yourself, peace with others, and peace with your place in the cosmic story. The loneliness that has haunted you begins to heal as you reconnect with the relationship you were designed for. The meaninglessness that has plagued you begins to dissolve as you rediscover the cosmic purposes built into your being. The guilt that has burdened you begins to lift as divine grace covers your shame and empowers you for restoration rather than condemnation. But this choice isn't just about personal transformation, it's about cosmic participation. When you choose to trust divine design over personal autonomy, you become part of the solution to humanity's ancient rebellion. You become a preview of what humans were meant to be, a demonstration of what happens when image bearers embrace their original calling. Your life becomes a bridge between realms. Your relationships become channels of divine love. Your work becomes an expression of cosmic purpose. Your very existence becomes a taste of Eden for everyone around you. The ripple effects extend far beyond what you can see. Children who see what it looks like when someone trusts divine wisdom. Friends who experience unconditional love flowing through human personality. Communities that benefit from someone who understands they were designed to be a blessing. Generations yet unborn who will inherit a world shaped by your choice to embrace restoration rather than rebellion. This is the eternal significance of your decision. This is why your choice matters, not just for your own happiness, but for the cosmic story itself. The same God who yatsard you is calling to you now. The same love that breathed neshama into humanity is offering to restore the relationship that was broken in the garden. The same grace that clothed shame and protected from eternal separation is extending an invitation to come home to your original design. You don't have to carry the burden of being your own God anymore. You don't have to design your own life, solve your own problems, create your own meaning, or bear your own shame. You can trust the one who knows you better than you know yourself, who loves you more than you love yourself, who has plans for your future that exceed your highest hopes. The choice is yours. It always has been. That's part of what makes you human rather than merely animal. That's part of what flows from carrying divine breath, rather than just biological life. You have the dignity of choice, the responsibility of decision, the power to shape not just your own destiny, but the destiny of everyone your life touches. Choose trust over independence. Choose relationship over autonomy. Choose divine design over personal preference. Choose the cosmic story over the individual narrative. Choose love over loneliness. Choose purpose over meaninglessness. Choose restoration over rebellion. Choose to come home. The same voice that called, "Where are you?" in the garden is calling to your heart right now. Not in condemnation, but in invitation. Not to judge, but to restore. Not to burden, but to bless. This is your moment. This is your choice. This is your invitation to step into the cosmic story you are yatsard to live. To embrace the neshama destiny you are designed for. To become the bridge between realms you are created to be. The forbidden history we've explored tonight reveals not just ancient truth, but eternal invitation. The hidden meanings we've discovered point not just to cosmic significance, but to personal transformation. The choice that shaped all of human history awaits your response right now. Where are you, and would you like to come home?